Hey everyone, welcome to the Learn From Us podcast. I'm Seth, this is Paul. We just got back from lunch. Wasn't it lovely?
Same place we went last time we talked about lunch.
You love that sushi place.
It's great.
Yeah, I love it too. I all too often question, how do we get fresh fish all the way into Ohio?
I think it's going to be delivered very quickly. You know, remember when we went on that plantation tour in Mexico?
Plátano plantation.
Yes. They said it's 24 hours from the time it's picked off the tree to the States.
Wasn't that fascinating?
It's amazing.
How much a pound did you think that guy made per bit? It wasn't very little. I
can ask him. He said he charged,
4 cents?
I want to say it was 4 cents per kilo.
Okay. 4 cents. Well, that's even less than 4 cents
Correct.
a pound. So, yeah, Paul and I, when we were in Mexico, Manzanillo, went to a banana plantation owned by a fellow friend of a friend, right?
Yeah.
And it was really incredible.
Luis.
It was incredible to see how bananas are grown and maintained, and it was awesome. It was awesome. So, yeah.
It was a great experience.
Yeah, so,
Get the machete.
yeah, we did. Chop down trees. You can cut a whole banana tree down in one machete swipe very easily. Machete. So I bring up lunch because we got into it again like we always do. I think we're making a whole business out of just you and I talking about things, and with the help of Tim, Mary, and
That's
Lisa,
all
just
we'll do.
talking about life. But I've said the last podcast how drastic my life changed when you drew out the B2Y and your B2Y mindset. And, we're coming in on the new year. We're making our New Year's resolutions. I think Mary even said, well, should we even beat a dead horse? Or what are they now saying? Feeding a dead horse instead of beating a dead.
Oh, that's right.
PETA wants us to say we're feeding a dead horse. No, we're feeding a horse, not a dead one. I digress. But Mary was saying, everyone talks about not only setting a resolution, but also how it fails. And so this is really big with your mindset too, right? I mean, you've stressed this a ton of times. So, I mean, I would say we wrote down, why do we make goals, and what are your thoughts about goals? I preface that, I asked because I was never a goal setter. People would ask me, what are your goals for this year? It's like, I don't know, just try as hard as I can and keep going. Because I felt like I was always in that race, that rat race of life. Is just you got to keep working and going. I don't even have time to worry about goals. I'm just going to keep producing and hope something happens. What do you think about that when I say that?
Do you know what Basecamp is?
No.
Basecamp is an online software created by a company. The two founders, and here's how good a memory I have, they wrote 2 books, one called Rework and one called It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. I love these books. They think very differently than all our tech companies. They don't believe in having Silicon Valley employees. They don't believe on raising money. They don't believe in goals. That's the one thing I'm kind of like, Their comment is, listen, your job is to build a profitable business and to do the things you enjoy doing that'll progress things along. They don't believe in, let's set a goal of raising revenue 20% this year. Let's set the goal. They think that kind of masks why you're doing something, which I can see that being an issue. I still have a hard time grasping not having goals. I like having goals. To me, it's just a matter of determine what your goals are. Maybe it's not 20% growth. Maybe it's just, hey, you know what? Business is pretty good. Let's maintain. Our goal this year should just be let's maintain.
I think you're far more analytical than most folks. We've discussed how in some of our past arguments, how that you analyze my sentences more than I do on the way out. And so, I think you are like very analytical about what people say and what people think. And I wouldn't consider myself the same way, but I have been trying to develop this mindset working with you about, it is about getting better, but placing some sort of actual numbers on things can get us going in the right direction.
Well, the reason I stress it with you, though, Seth, is we've talked about finite numbers for you as goals. And that's why if you came to me and said, Paul, I just want to provide value to somebody and be paid and that's it, I'd be like, okay, that's totally different. But when you've expressed how you would like to make more and do more, then I sit there and say, hey, we can't just say these are our finite goals but not have finite steps along the way. We have to have those steps, the B to Y part, where we sit there and say, this is B, this is C, this is D, this is E. And it's not always numbers. It could be tasks, right? And to have goals, if you don't have goals, I'm fine with that. But I don't want to hear you later on say, I'm not doing as well as I want to. And I'm not saying you, I'm talking about everybody else. you can't say that. It's like, fine, let's pick a goal. And I like goals personally because it keeps you, I like having something to always go after. It doesn't mean it's making me happy. To me, the journey is the fun part. But at the same token, I think a lot of people like accomplishing things. And I think that if you even set a goal, whatever it is, maintaining. If you have a reason why, you know what, I just don't want to go backwards, and you maintain, that could be just as great as making 20% growth, right? I'm just a big believer in here's where I stand, here's where I want to go, what's in between? What am I going to do to get there? My goals have changed over time, right? And I told you from high school versus now, college versus now, 10 years ago versus now, 5 years ago versus now, my goals have totally changed. But now to me, the goals, because I set those goals and because as I achieved them, I realized they weren't necessarily providing me the happiness I thought they would. It allowed me to reevaluate what my goals actually were. And I don't know if that's a positive spin or not.
Tell me about what makes you happy nowadays. You've told me, but
I like working towards something. I like making progress. I like doing something very well. You know, I look at our Mexico houses, for example.
They're now ours.
That's right. They're our Mexico. Exactly. I just gave it to you.
Thank you.
To even say they're beautiful.
Heaven.
Yeah, and I just look at it and go, that's what I'm proud of. Our real estate. I look at it going, you know, we're not in the best markets. In some areas, when I tell people where we're at, they're like, oh, that's, you know, a Class C area. Yeah. But they're the best units in that area. That's unequivocal. You're not going to be able, it's proven in our rents, it's proven in our quality, et cetera. When you see what we're doing here at Learn From Us, when I get the reactions from people saying randomly, your podcast is awesome, keep it going, this is great. I loved Seth making fun of you for being short.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay, it's reality.
Yeah, but you don't make fun of me for being fat.
You're stocky.
I digress.
Yes. The whole point is that provides satisfaction to me where would we love to have 1 million listeners? Of course we would. But the reality is we're starting somewhere. And the whole point is to start, it's getting attention. Remember when I first called you and I was like, dude, great news. We had 37 downloads of our podcast. You're like, that's it? I'm like, what are you talking about? That's awesome. And you're like, oh, and then you immediately shifted your thought process behind. Like I just look at it and saying, I can't get to 1 million before I get to 100,000.
37, 38, 39.
Correct.
Gosh, I mean, yeah, it's tough to think that way. You have to be.
It is. But imagine if your goal was only 1 million and you didn't understand the in-between. So if you don't get 1 million day one, you're a failure? That's what you're essentially saying, right?
One of my other colleagues, Brian Kite with Focus 3, talks about this all the time, that people will set lofty goals. I need to lose 50 pounds. When they only lose 20, it's considered a failure. You know, they'll hurt themselves because they didn't actually obtain a goal, even though the par might be good enough.
Par is good enough to win. Now, we also went and listened to the Iron Cowboy back in June, where he just says, pick an insane goal, and we call it the Iron Cowboy goal, which I also like. But
you call that in here? Or?
Yes, we call it the Iron Cowboy goal in here.
Yeah, so folks, if you haven't gone on Amazon Prime, there's a guy named, his nickname is Iron Cowboy. His real name is
James Lawrence.
James Lawrence. He set the Guinness Book of World Record for completing 33 Ironmans in 1 year. 33 Ironmans in 1 year.
Yep.
And that wasn't good enough for him. So I usually set the premise up that you have to watch this special.
Can you tell everybody what an Ironman is?
Well, yeah. So an Ironman is I've done many, Paul, with my body type. You can tell. But our friend Harry's done one in Mexico. I want
to see proof of that.
It's swimming, biking, and running. So you do a 3-point-something mile swim or 2 miles?
2 mile swim.
2.4.
Yeah.
112-mile bike, and then a marathon,
which is 26.2 miles.
Yeah, and then it's funny.
In a 17-hour period.
Is it? It takes that. Well, right. Yeah.
I think to qualify, it had to be within 17 hours from start to finish.
So I set the premise up as, folks, you got to see this. You got to see this documentary because it's about a guy who did 50 marathons. Yeah, or 50 Ironmans. Yeah, who cares? Well, actually, he did it in 50 states, different states, all 50 states. Yeah, okay, great. And he did it in 50 days. And so I immediately had to see this. He woke up, started in Alaska or Hawaii, then flew to Alaska every single day of his life. I don't even know how it got done, but the whole documentary, it's incredible. And the guy's incredible. And Paul had him come speak to your workers that day. And how did we get on this topic though? Like,
we're talking about the goals and setting reasonable goals. Hey, I set 50 pounds to lose. I only lost 20. I'm a failure. People are programmed differently. He would have felt like a failure had he not finished those 50 Ironmans. I'm a big believer in the old cliche of aim for the moon, because if you miss, you hit the stars, or it's the other way around. I don't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Whatever it is.
You're a big believer in it, whatever it is. Go ahead. I'm getting.
The whole point I'm trying to make is, I like. What is it?
I think it's shoot for the stars.
Yeah, shoot for the stars. If you miss, you'll.
Yeah, I get that, but it seems like you overshoot the moon, though, and the stars are behind it. Anyways, I don't want to get into too much thinking about it, but that's why it doesn't make sense to me, even though the stars are further away than the moon. The whole point is, there are multiple ways to skin a cat, and some people believe in. I've gotten more of, let's set our Ironman goals for 10 years from now, but let's set our quarterly goals to how do we get to that Ironman goal. That's the thing that I'm trying to do. And his thing wasn't, I'm going to do 50 Ironmans, 50 days, 50 different states, and I'm going to start tomorrow. It's, I'm going to start in a year and a half or 2 years, and I'm going to train every single day until then to be ready for that. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't just like he woke up one morning and thought, this sounds like a good idea. It was, okay, let's do this, and then let me go train for that. You keep motioning something.
So tie that into the B2Y for our new people that never heard that before. Explain what that looks like.
Yeah, Tim's asking about how we can tie this back into the B2Y, because Tim loves, we talked about at lunch, Tim loves the idea of this this book he read about the do it now mentality, do it now, and you lit up when you heard that.
Yeah. So B2Y is that same, everybody talks about A to Z, but there's actually the B to Y in the middle. It's B to Y that really matters. Everybody can start, which by the way, tons of people don't start. And we only see the finish usually. We only focus on the finish. But it's all those steps in between. It's when he decided to do 50 Ironmans, 50 different states in 50 days. It was, what am I going to train in the next year and a half? Those B to Y steps before I even start my new A, which is Ironman number 1. And that's the stuff that matters so much. If you want to go pro in basketball, you can go pro in basketball. If Gio says I want to go pro in basketball, absolutely you can go pro in basketball. What has to happen? Okay, Gio, here's what we have to do. We're going to have to work 2 hours a day on this, 1 hour a day on this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Okay, you're not going to go pro in basketball. That's okay, Gio. You'll survive. You don't go pro in basketball.
This is my 8-year-old son. But
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to pick on Gio. I'm just sitting there saying, pick a young person. Whatever it is you want to do, it's all broken down. People see us now as a company and go, wow, look at that success. The biggest pet peeve I have is people think that everything is easy for us.
I just texted. I mean, I can be honest, man. My friend doesn't know you from Adam. And I said, oh, yeah, we're going to Mexico next week. We'll be shooting some podcasts there. And I said, yeah. I was like, I got a tough, this is the burden, the cross I have to bear. I have to go to Mexico next week. And he just types back, lucky you, lucky your friend. I was like, gosh, luck. I've been called lucky for some of the things that have happened to me. And I always really, really hated that,
Luck exists, but if you don't take advantage of it, it does not matter. Luck doesn't make anybody successful. The whole, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. That's 100% true. You look at Bill Gates. He got lucky being born in 1956 because when he was a youngster, he was lucky being born to his family in Seattle. But how many other kids were born in 1956 and went to that same school that had a computer in there and didn't do anything with it? Thousands of kids. Mm-hmm. So why was Bill Gates different? Because he went there and he was prepared and he took the opportunity and he went and jumped on it. No different. Am I lucky? Absolutely. Are you lucky for knowing me? Absolutely. Are you lucky that sometime in the past somebody told you you're going to Walsh, and if someday you become a multimillionaire because of something we do here, is that luck? Sure. But if you didn't know how to do any of this stuff and you weren't skilled and you weren't, what does it matter? Mm-hmm. We went to high school with 197 other people besides you and I. I'm not doing it with all of them. I mean, Andrew's upstairs, and that's pretty much it. But we didn't do it with them. Why? Because is it lucky that you and I ran into each other at a Cavs game? Is it lucky that you sat next to one of my friends at the Cavs game? Sure, it's luck. But again, if you weren't competent, it would have never happened. Right?
Yeah. That's
the whole point. That's what it belittles us when people say luck. Because sure, is there luck involved? Sure. But guys, there's 7.4 billion people in this world. Everybody gets lucky in their lifetime. Who jumps on it? Back to B2Y, who jumps on it and does the A to Z steps. That's why I'm so anal, and that's why I'm so big on these things, because I see how not getting these steps done and delaying them just delays your success. That's all it's doing. So you have to decide, if something takes 3 months to do, why take 4 or 5 months to do it? Just get the steps done. Just go through it and do it. And it's a very hard thing to program yourself to do, and people out there watching are probably like, oh, I do that all the time. No, you don't. Because I know I'm not perfect about it. If I'm not perfect about it, I sure as hell can say they're not, and you're not. You know what I mean? It's not meant to say I'm better than you, Nan. And it's to sit there and say we're all going to slack at some point. We got back from lunch at 1:46, and we said we're going to do something at 2:30. I went to my office. Did I really spend 44 minutes doing the most efficient thing I could? Probably not.
Yeah.
Did I do something? Of course. I had some money.
You're at work at a desk.
And I was doing something. I was looking at financials of one of our businesses, talking about sales about it and all that stuff. And that was productive. But at the same token, was it as productive as it could have been? No, but we're all trying to get better. You know what I mean? That's all it is. And anybody who thinks they're the best, game over. Forget about it. Not going to happen. B2Y is important. You got to get those steps done all along the way.
I think this goes into like you've talked about sort of your frustrations with people who verbalize how much stuff they get done or how busy they are.
They don't verbalize how much stuff they get done ever. They verbalize how busy they are.
Yeah.
I've never heard somebody verbalize, look at all the stuff I do. No, you just say I'm busy. Because who's going to argue with that? Right?
Yeah.
Who argues with I'm busy?
It's the universal excuse to not do or not do things, right?
Yep. And it's just like when people say, that person's smart. What makes them smart? If you ever hear somebody say that person's smart, you ask them what makes them smart, you'll hear stuttering.
I used to think it was really, if you were really good at Jeopardy, you were smart.
And by the way, you are smart in a certain fashion, but would you rather be the guy who gets everything right in Jeopardy but can't get things done, or the other way around?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive. I'm just sitting there saying that I would rather, like my brother's going to have has a child and is going to probably have a few more kids. I'd rather teach them, get things done. I don't care if you can't rattle off who the leader of Venezuela was from 1907 to 1919, because that's all great and dandy. But if you can't go take this chair and get it to the door in a reasonable, efficient manner, then you're useless to me.
Yeah.
And that's what, to me, I think the world should value, is getting things done.
What about like complacency?
Oh boy.
You said that in the past you struggled with achieving and then getting complacent.
Yeah, complacency is a big it's a big fear I have. I think that's what pushes me on the goals, because I feel like we have a lot of people working here, and I want them to feel like they're working here not just for a paycheck, but for something bigger than that, right? Complacency occurs when you're comfortable. You know, when I look at our numbers at the end of the day, and I feel like a brat at times looking at our bottom line number going, that's not good enough. Not because I want more. You see my lifestyle. I have a great lifestyle. I don't need much more, anything more. I look at it from the standpoint of, what would that allow us to do for so many other things? You know what I mean? There's other goals we have. And complacency is when you get comfortable with a situation saying, nope, this is good. Part of the reason we sold our biggest property recently, part of the reason was, what else can we do there? Guys, how many more units do we have left to rehab at Shaker? 40, 50?
No, it was a little bit more than that.
Was it?
About 70.
Oh, was it that many?
Yeah, it was.
This was the 300 unit.
Yeah, 308 units. And we had about 70 units left to rehab, which is still a lot of units. But other than that, we had no other thing to accomplish there. So I was like, okay, let's just get rid of it.
You sold it in like October?
August 31st, we closed.
Oh, okay.
But we sold it because we're just like, what else is there to do there? I really like the idea of making progress, not being complacent. Pleased but never satisfied. That's a big thing for me, because you know, I'm very big on being happy, and I don't want to always be looking in the future saying, oh, I'll be happy if this happens. And I feel kind of that way when I say don't be complacent. That's not my intention. My intention is to say, what do you enjoy doing? What do you value? Go do it more. You know what I mean? Money is an ends, right? What's going to cause you the satisfaction along the way is a thing. The money shows you at the end when you've accomplished X, Y, and Z potentially in my work. That's what's going to, you know, in this, like, for example, we're going to rate it based on how many podcast downloads do we have, right? That's what matters. It's not like if we got one more podcast download, we're like, oh, we're happy now. No, it's just, okay, we're providing content that people value, and they're telling their friends and they're sharing it and all that stuff. That's what I want to do. I want to provide good content.
Seems like so. I tell people you're very committed to even you're hiring. You hire families. You know what I mean. You hire like Lisa and Lisa's daughter
And Mary's husband. Tim's wife worked for us for a while. She still kind of does, doesn't she, Tim?
She does.
She does.
Why is
But
it
it's not
so?
like full time.
Why is that so important to you and rewarding?
Well, I won't say it's. I don't do it out of a like, oh, I like family around. I do it more of a. If I know somebody's work ethic, it's not very likely that their significant other or child is much different. They can provide, at least I know them where I can sit there and say, hey, listen, it's caused issues at times, right? I mean, we had somebody leave recently it was kind of unfortunate they left. It was because
Sure.
so that sucks. But at the same token, I also want us to all really get along in more of a, on our corporate level, on our up there level. I want us to all be like family. I think we all are like family, correct? Say it. Tim.
How was this? How has your mindset changed since your brother had a baby? Seems like you've changed a little bit.
Have I?
Well, you bring her up a lot more when she didn't exist a year ago. So,
Isn't that weird?
well, you just
I've
I've never you typically hadn't mentioned much about kids and future generations. You kind of
Oh, really?
are taking some ownership of this child, and it's nice to see.
I've always thought about future generations. I've been obsessed with it for the last 10 years because I think to myself,
Oh no, I'm sorry. I meant one specifically tied to you, and taking in your lifestyle
That's what
and
I
how
mean.
that's gonna go on.
That's what
Keep
I
going
mean.
then. Yeah.
No, I mean that. I've told them before. I mean, Mary and I have had this conversation about, everybody says like, oh, you're going to spoil the crap out of that child. And I don't want to. Do I think they're going to have a very good life or they're going to be spoiled? Of course. But at the same point, there's a difference between being spoiled and being a brat. And you know what I mean? And that's the, are they going to have everything they need or want ever? Absolutely. Are they going to be a brat about it? That's the big thing. Like, I don't think my brother and I are brats. We had everything we ever wanted after the age of 10. I don't think Mikey even was like 2, but I don't think we were ever brats about it. Maybe for a little bit of time I was probably a brat. But I look at it and go, my parents were really strict about putting us in line. And I go, there's a difference between entitlement and being spoiled. Spoiled to me is more like you pretty much have everything, like, she's not going to want for a car someday. She's going to get a car. You know what I mean? At 16, she's going to get a safe, good car. She's not going to buy some beat up clunker. That's this level of spoiled. Now, if she comes to us and goes, well, because of who we are, I expect this car. It's like, okay, that's a brat. You know what I mean? That's an entitled brat.
Yeah.
And that's something that BK has said, that's on us. If we're making her entitled, we're making any future child entitled. I think about future generations because I don't want them to feel like, I don't want to portray to them that I think if they don't have our life, that they're a failure. You know what I mean? Like if they're not financially successful, they're a failure. Mikey, my brother and I always talk about how are we going to leave the money at some point? And we're not going to leave the money like the Waltons of Walmart. He just gave the money all to his kids and said, "Okay, I'm worth 60 billion. Y'all get 50. Y'all get 12 each." That's a lot. I mean, granted, I feel like they do a pretty good job with it, but at the same point, I'm like, oh, that's just too scary to think about. Are there other things you can do? Of course, but I want to be very cognizant of the fact that I teach them that I used to tell my brother, if he didn't need the money, he'd get the money. If he needed the money, he wouldn't get the money. Kind of like, if you're self-sufficient enough where you can go live on your own, I'm gonna be more generous with you than if you sit there and do nothing all your life but expect to be, have a life paid for you. You're gonna get a lot. You're gonna get like nothing. Hopefully, you know what Warren Buffett says about it. You know what his saying is. He says, "Leave enough they could do anything, but not enough they could do nothing." That's a pretty good statement, but I think his numbers, and when they ask him like how much, he's like, a few $100,000. The guy's worth $85 billion and his kids are going to inherit a few $100,000 from him. What they don't realize also is he's also putting money into their foundations, which will draw them a salary, which will be nice. And all that. So he's leaving them more than a few $100,000. But they seem to be good kids who all have their own center of focus. Like the one's a composer or something like that, and the other one's a farmer, and the other one works in the nonprofits and things like that. So I think about that stuff a lot, and the people they hang around is a big deal. We were talking about schools earlier and who they hang around, and you can't control that sometimes in terms of who they hang around.
Who in your life has really been, who has mastered this B2Y, this B2Y mentality, and who's killing it?
Oh God, I think it's kind of like. I think there's a few people in this room who are doing very well with it. But I hate to say that because I don't want to be complacent. That's the funny part. Like I sat there and said, like, okay, well, Tim and Mary do a pretty good job of it.
I can retire now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want them saying, oh, well, we do a great job, so therefore, the bar isn't everybody else. The bar is what we determine the bar to be, right? I think they do. I don't have to follow up with them on many things. I think a lot of people in that office upstairs do a very good job of being, and they've gotten a lot better. There were some people who were like, oh boy, we got to work on this, and they've gotten a lot better. We all need to get better. We can't be complacent about it and say, oh, because we're better than everybody else, therefore we're great. You know what I mean? Imagine how much better basketball players would be if 60% was considered average. Like I always wonder that. Like, what if we just told kids, if you can't shoot 60% from the field, you're not going to go pro? I mean, I imagine the bar would be lifted and people would probably do better. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why was one guy able to do 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 different days when doing one Ironman in your life was considered an accomplishment?
Yeah.
In your life. Not like in a year. In your life was considered an accomplishment.
Sure.
We set our own limitations, right? And complacency is exactly what that does. Complacency just says, okay, I've done enough. This is it.
Yeah, I wonder what the Iron Cowboy says in his car when he passes someone with a 13.1 sticker on the back of their car. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on the couch watching football, so...
13.1, that's called an afternoon for me, pal.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have no desire to do an Ironman, and I probably never do an Ironman. But if I ever chose to do an Ironman, I think I would be able to do it. That's the thing. It's all mentality of what you want, right? Like we talked about you in weight recently. You're like, what'd you say about it? You're like, well, I can't lose it or something like that. I said, no, you're just choosing not to use it. Lose it.
Lose it.
Yes. Everybody can lose weight.
Sure.
It's
yes.
just not important enough to you right now.
Yeah. Well, we talked about New Year's goals.
Yeah.
And I always bring up my dude, BK from Focus 3. And he'll stand on stage in front of 600 people and says, is there anyone in the room who is not clear on how to lose weight? I'm like, yet. We have to pay for the pills and the gym memberships and
what are the pills, by the way? They're just shortcuts, right?
Even if they're working, I mean,
that's what I mean.
Some of them might have medical sort of,
but they're not going to be in and of themselves
no.
the magic bullet.
Pills and Twinkies don't lose weight. No.
I love when people tell me like, oh, it's my genetic makeup. Okay.
You don't think that it's a little bit?
It does. It has an absolute effect.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that
you can't
excuse
lose
weight.
Not lose weight.
Yeah. I mean, are some people going to have a higher metabolism? Yeah, it's called science. Science doesn't have everybody be exactly the same. There are certain things, but it doesn't mean that, okay, it's just like numbers. I do numbers very, very well. Something in me had me calculate numbers very well early on in life. It doesn't mean you can't be good at numbers. Oh, you've seen me type before. How fast am I at typing?
130 words a minute.
Not that fast, but 153 was my record in high school, but I do about 107 now. Call it 100 all day.
I do 35.
Is that what the number is?
Yeah.
I heard you clicking earlier, and I was just like, let me go to the computer.
That's how I know you, because I knew in my mind as I was clicking, you're judging me.
No judging.
He's judging.
Could you do 70?
I'm sure I could.
Of course, if you tried and you did it, all that stuff. It's just people. For some reason, it works better for me, and I was able to do it pretty quickly from day one.
I think people. So we'll boil it down to very simplistic terms. Like I see you type, which is a basic life skill. I see the way I type, so I've been trying in my mind to have the discipline to type better.
Okay.
But every time I do that, I have to make the conscious decision to not get the work I'm trying to do done fast enough and revert back to my basic typing skills of keeping my hands in the right area. So that discipline sometimes I think catches up with people, like losing weight for me, doing a budget as we talked about in one of the podcasts. Doing a budget, typing better, or losing weight involves backtracking from the plowing forward that we do every day to get our internal goals done.
I don't think it's backtracking. I think it's just shifting. I don't think you're backtracking. All you're doing is saying, hey, I was going in this direction before. I'm going to go in this direction now. That's all it is. How is it a backtrack?
Well, I have to slow myself down. When I know I could go very sloppily get the email done, I have to go back and look at where my pinky's going or fire up that app about what kind of food I put in, right? Like people say there's these wonderful food apps where you can type in. It's like, well, yeah, that's great. I don't have time to do that. I'm not going to do that.
You always have time.
Right.
What is it? What are you doing there? You're making a decision not to do it. It's not time. If you have time to, I don't know, you have time. Nobody in the world doesn't have time.
Right. I don't want to make time.
I look at my brother. I look at my brother and sister-in-law. Both work. My brother's running a business with me. She works. She works for a judge. She's a lawyer. I've never heard them ever talk about how busy they are with their kid. My brother gets up at 5:30 in the morning. I've never heard him say to me, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. His wife gets up at 5:30, sometimes at 5 o'clock to go work out. I've never heard them ever talk about not having time. They just prioritize. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I look at that going, I'm not trying to pat them on the back, but I've never seen, every single time I've seen somebody have a kid, the first thing is like, oh my God, I have no time in the world. I'm just like, okay, sounds good. That's fine. But why is it they don't do that? I don't know. I do know. But look at going, they just don't make it. It's not like the earth came to a crashing halt because they had a child. They're just like, okay, well, we have to adjust things. They shifted. What's the shift? Okay, now instead of doing whatever they want, whenever they want, like my brother used to just sit around and watch football with me on the weekend. Now there's a kid in his lap.
Yeah.
There's a burping. There's a feeding. His wife, they switch off. Like she'll go out, run errands. He stays at home. That's it. I come over and hang out. That sort of thing. They bring a babysitter in when they need it. That's it. They figure out the things. There's no such thing as not having time. There's choosing not to spend time on it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
By the way, you do something very well, voice text. You can do that. MyFitnessPal, you can do the voice thing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Of course.
Well, this was Diet Tips 101 with Paul Gabriel.
Can I make a comment?
Go.
The first time I went to Mexico was 2012, November. In July, I went to Lisa, her husband, her family went to not Hilton Head, St. Simon Island. And they invited me there. I went there with them. For a while, they've been saying, oh, we should work out, we should work out. Then a picture was taken of me and her son, Daniel, who I'm very close to. I looked at it and go, good Lord, I'm fat.
Well, he's a skinny kid.
He's a skinny kid, but I felt fat. Came back home and I said, guys, it's on me. Let's lose weight together. I was so important about it to me. I was like, so Lisa said, I have a friend who has a trainer. They were like, well, okay. We met. We hired him. Very next day, July 31st, we start with them. We got a measurements. 184.6 was my measurement. I was 5'8.5", 184.6. I was like 27% body fat. I thought I looked fine. Because I never knew any different. November 20th, we went to Mexico. I weighed 167 and I had way more muscle. I was like lifting at the same time, all from shifting how I did things. Now I went cold turkey, Seth. I went from eating whatever I wanted to 5 meals a day, structured, no pop, water, blah, blah, protein, carb, all that stuff. But the whole point was I got embarrassed by how I looked and I went and made a change because of it.
Yeah.
I made the excuse of I'm always driving. I eat fast food. All I did was shift how I did it. Instead of eating fast food, I brought snacks on the road with me. Almonds, beef jerky, something a little more lean, you know what I mean? And beef jerky has a lot of sodium, blah, blah, blah. But the whole point is I brought snacks that made sense. I prepared meals ahead of time. That way I could eat those meals instead of fast food. We always have time. And now I'm higher in weight, but I've been working out more and more, and I have way more muscle. I just changed the way I did my life. That's all I did. Now, I'm not as strict as I used to be, because I'd probably be 170 or 168 if I was more strict with even this much more muscle. But I made a conscious effort to say, okay, I went to that extreme. I was extreme of eating whatever I wanted, and I went to the extreme of being super lean. I want to be somewhere in the middle. I want to be able to eat whatever I want, and then say, okay, I ate whatever I wanted all day today. Tomorrow and the next day, I got to be very clean about it. It's all about making choices. The thing I have an issue with is when people say they don't have time for the choice, or well, basically any excuse for why they don't make that choice. Well, then don't cry and complain about it.
Yeah.
By the way, I wasn't saying you were crying and complaining about it at all. I'm sitting there saying when somebody says like, oh, I'd love to get thin, but I don't have time to go work out. No, you don't make the time to go work out. That's it.
Yeah.
So sorry to go on that rant, but it was important to me because I was at that belief before. And I used to look at my family members and say, well, they all look like me, so I'm probably going to be this way forever. Now, my trainer at the time said, oh, Paul, you were on a downhill course for 250 pounds. I go, no, I wasn't. Shut up. So he went to the other extreme of saying, you're going to be 250. No, I wasn't. Genetics made it possible for me not to be that. You know what I mean? Because I looked at my family genes and said, nobody's fat. Nobody in my family was fat obese. Everybody was, maybe a few guys were overweight, but nobody was fat. I'm looking at, no, I wasn't going to be that extreme, but I wasn't going to be the extreme of being able to, get ripped and jacked unless I put major effort into it, which I'm not willing to do. That's my monologue right there.
At least you're honest about it.
Honesty is the best way. It sets you free. When you start determining what you want in life and you just go, I'm not willing to do that, how freeing is that?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. As long as you're okay with it. That's it. Everything's about choices. And unfortunately for me, I make a choice best when I'm embarrassed. And when I saw that picture of me, I was like, I remember I was in a white polo shirt, sitting like this in a chair, like this. And my face was just bloated. And I was like, okay, we're changing this now.
I got to see this photo.
It's on Facebook.
Which, by the way, you can look up Paul on Facebook.
Segue.
At the real Paul Gabriel, Gabrail. He's on Instagram at Paul_Gabriel. And join us. Check out our newly enhanced and amazing Learn From Us website, learnfromus.com. That was almost the catalyst for starting all this, right?
What was almost the catalyst?
Well, the Learn From Us website. Like, you kind of like, we have this website and we should be harnessing this idea of learning from us. That and a decade of people telling you should be teaching.
Yes. I mean, teaching a little bit, but not doing it for money. But also the podcast, download it at Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play.
Yeah.
Learn From Us Investor Academy. Don't look up my name.
Yeah, if you want to see what we look like in foolish behavior on YouTube, there's a Learn From Us YouTube page, Investor Academy. Paul, this was great.
I loved it.
We
had a very productive day.
We're a little more than a week away from our Mexico podcast. We will have some intriguing guests. We will continue our Deal of the Week mini podcast with Andrew. You will hear from Rahman, who runs Fit Active Sports.
Yep.
And is totally killing the game with his sports equipment.
Yes.
And we'll hear from Darnell Sanders, who runs NFL Landscaping in Cleveland.
Yep.
And how he's in one of the first podcasts we have, but we're going to check in with him and Rahman. It should be entertaining.
And a few other guests, hopefully.
Yeah, that's right.
Who are from Mexico.
So, like, comment, subscribe. I'm running out of jokes for Paul. We've been together too long. Yeah, so just in the comments, just put some comments about Paul that I can use in the podcast. I'll definitely read them. So Paul
I think you're just being more courteous, but you shouldn't.
Well, I mean, listen, I got into this because the way you say things, like, I need to respond because we're on a podcast, and so I'm just sitting here dumbfounded, like, wow, man, this dude is blowing my mind.
Well, I appreciate that.
So, yeah, constantly thinking about life, So, all right. Thank you, everyone.
much.
Yep, talk to you soon.
Peace.